Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel, and I have a great show planned for you today. I was talking to my co-host of America's Missing Podcast, my other show, which continues to gain in popularity, my co-host, Melissa. And she listens to, now that she's friends with me and knows I do this show, she has listened to some other shows, and she's given me some opinions on those other shows, and they're not always sparkling. And I told her I think the difference with my show compared to a lot of other conservative shows is that I challenge my listeners, I challenge conservatives much more than other people do. Because I'm not in this to make friends. I'm not in this to be part of a clique. I've never felt the need to be part of a group. So that's why I don't go to any conservative functions or Tea Party and nothing. Nothing. Because I will always want to make sure when I come to this microphone on this particular show that I challenge all of you to maybe get you out of your comfort zone, which I think that you all have been in for too long because other conservative hosts are just trying to be your friend. I'm going to be honest. In the end, I really don't care if I'm your friend or not. I think this United States going in the proper direction is more important than you particularly liking what I say just because I'm kissing your butt. That's, if you know me personally, then you know I'm like that anyway. I'm a really good guy. I'm a nice guy. I'm a genuine guy. But don't expect me to say things just to make you happy. Okay? And I probably get that from my parents. But in any case, let's cover a couple of topics, and you'll see where I'm going with this as the show goes on. You'll notice that Mega Millions crossed the $500 million barrier after it wasn't hit last night. You could do a lot with that money, people. I mean, I know in the end, the cash equivalent after taxes and everything is going to be in the high twos, 280 million, 290 million cash that you'll never have to pay taxes on it again. You can buy a really nice mansion with a moat that has alligators and piranhas and eels and sharks in it. I think that's what I'd do. You think all those animals would get along? Would they all be salt? Would it have to be saltwater in there? Huh? Saltwater moat, not a freshwater moat. I'm going to have to think about that. No, wait. Alligators are freshwater. Crocodiles are saltwater. So it would have to be crocodiles, not alligators. Okay. Well, I'm sure with all my money we could figure that all out. I think. Because I don't want any dead animals showing up in there, dead sharks like floating to the surface or anything. But that would be kind of cool. And that's probably what I would do. And you got to play. I don't care that they say that lotteries are a tax on the poor. When it gets to 500 million, got to play. Got to play. Also, Jung Ho Gung, my favorite, as it would go coincidentally, my favorite Pittsburgh Pirate has had allegations of sexual assault brought against him, that he raped a woman in Chicago back on June 17th while the Pirates were playing the Cubs. I think that would have been like a Friday night. We're going to see what goes on with that. I'm wondering, it's very well could be that he did do this, and if he did, he should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. However, I will admit that on the other hand, I'm wondering if, being that he's from South Korea, hasn't been in the United States, if he completely understands that when you go on a dating app like Bumble, that maybe you're not meeting, let's just say, an amateur woman. Can I just put it that way? And I'm sure the police there will figure this all out. And like I said, if he did do something to this woman, the allegations that he put something in her drink and she, of course, fainted, and then he proceeded to rape her, then put her in a taxi to send her off on her way. We'll find out. Either way, we'll find out. So that's going on. So let's get to the show. The reason I bring up the straight talk and why I'm not trying to be your friends on this show comes back to the Hillary Clinton case, stated so eloquently by James Comey, FBI director, yesterday, where he said all these bad things about Hillary and what went down, and then in the end says that there's no prosecutor would bring a case like this to trial because. And I talked about it at length for about over half the show yesterday. But in the last 24 to 36 hours, it has been amusing to me, and yes, I'll admit it, it's been amusing to see all the hand-wringing that has gone on the conservative side. Whereas I go to the Daily Cause, it barely gets a mention. I haven't been to that site in a while. You know, that's one of the most popular liberal news sites out there. All they want to do is talk about how the House is now going to investigate the investigators and James Comey. And if you also don't know, James Comey, FBI director, once again, that's how it's not Comey, it's Comey, is going to go to Capitol Hill tomorrow. Willingly, I don't think that he's being subpoenaed or anything. He's going to go up on his own volition to talk about it and answer questions, and maybe that will be interesting. But all of this outrage seems kind of funny to me on this conservative side. Because here's what I know. I think I know about people. You know what the truth is about people? People love scoundrels. They love them. What do you think has been going on in sports for the last 25, 30 years? People continue to show up and root for people who mostly men, although there have been some women that have been cheaters, and specifically steroids and HGH, the rest, all those drugs. Lance Armstrong. I guess Maria Sharapova can be thrown into that now as well if you want to talk about a particular woman. Marion, what was her name? The sprinter. Can't think of her name. Her first name. I think her first name is Marion. That she won a gold medal in 2004. All that stuff got stripped. But for decades, people have shown up rooting for people who they knew were cheating and they didn't care. Didn't care. Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. Everybody knew when these guys were playing that something was going on, and still they get cheered. In fact, some of them still play. Ryan Braun plays for the Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewer fans still love him, even though he was a liar, a cheater, and tried to get other people in trouble who tried to expose him. They still root for him. So I'm not surprised when there are people out there who, no matter what their political disposition is, who continue to support Hillary Clinton. What I find funny is I know that there are a bunch of conservatives out there who for decades cheered cheaters, and now they're mad at Hillary Clinton. You love scoundrels. Why can't you just admit it? Did you see where I was going at the beginning of the show? I told you I don't want to be your friend. I'm here to challenge you. You love scoundrels. Hillary Clinton is a scoundrel. Donald Trump got all the votes. Guess what he is? He's a scoundrel. And you know what? Millions and millions and millions of otherwise good people love him. Why? Because he's their scoundrel. There is not a dime's worth of difference, and I don't know, do we have to change that because of inflation? A quarter's worth, a dollar's worth, or $100 worth of difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and their views on power and manipulation and cheating and scams and fake nonprofits and conning people, flim-flam man, flim-flam woman. They're all the same, but somehow a lot of you will convince yourself that there is a difference. There's not. The only difference is Donald Trump, you've decided, is going to be your scoundrel. Scoundrels cannot fix this country. Only people of character can fix this country. And dare I say it, I don't know how much the United States has. And in fact, I'll give you a perfect example of this. If you remember, if you were listening to this show last NFL season, I boycotted my Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I will admit that over the last maybe 4 years, I've become probably a bigger Pittsburgh Pirate fan than Pittsburgh Steeler fan, only for the reason that I didn't play football. I played in 7th and 8th grade, hated it. Hated the practicing, hated the hitting, hated the running around the track, hated wearing the helmets, hated wearing the shoulder pads, hated all of it. Hated it. Loved basketball, and I played baseball, and actually I was pretty good at baseball. And I think that still continues with me to this day. And now that the Pirates are good again, they're back in my good graces, frankly. And the Steelers, I still root for them, and I hope they win. But this past NFL season, I did not watch any Pittsburgh Steelers games. Why? Because they put a dog killer on their team. Now, I will have you know that most people who knew me personally thought I was crazy. But at some point, you have to sometimes back away from something that you like if you think something is going wrong within that sport, that hobby, those politics, whatever else. The problem is nobody's willing to do that. Everybody would rather vote for scoundrels, cheer for cheaters, than actually show that they have any character. They can't even back away for a season. 16 games. In baseball, that'd be 6 months. They can't even take themselves away from it for 6 months. But then they expect their country to have character. They need their Super Bowl. They need their Stanley Cup. They need their 3 hours of entertainment, damn it. But then you want everything to go right and the proper moral way when Hillary Clinton gets involved in some sort of scandal. Those are unreasonable expectations, people. What you saw yesterday is just the continuing breakdown of character in this country. And that you don't realize that and you don't see it coming is bizarre to me. You are a bunch of adults. I know you don't like getting preached to. Maybe that's what you're getting to today. You don't want to hear it. That's why I said this is an uncomfortable show for a lot of people. Melissa asked me, why isn't your show higher in the ratings? Well, maybe this is the reason. But we're going to get to that too. Don't you worry about that. I'm going to get to that in a second too, because there's a lot of suspicions have become very obvious to me. Become not suspicions anymore, but facts have become very right in my face that I can't deny them anymore. And I'll get to that in a second. But this is what you get. When you embrace scoundrels into your lives, don't be surprised when then scoundrels rise to the highest offices in the United States. Don't be surprised by that. You all think that there's some sort of impenetrable barrier, like the Great Barrier. What was in the one Star Trek movie? The horrible Star Trek V, was it? And I think that might have been mentioned in the original series, like something that no ship can go past, or it's a wall. It's like the wall that Trump's never going to build between Mexico and the United States that he tells you is going to keep everybody out. That impenetrable wall. You all seem to think that there's some impenetrable wall between your hobbies and politics. There isn't. Our hobbies, our interests, what we love, what we cherish, follows us everywhere. And so when you embrace half-truths And people who cheat so they can make more money and entertain you, don't be surprised if at some point something important happens and somebody gets off and evades any sort of responsibility in the matter. Don't be surprised by that. That you are, once again, that you are surprised by it is weird to me. And then on top of that, this previous nomination season, a lot of you vote for a scoundrel. You had a choice of all of these other people, and none of them are perfect. I'm sure they all have some weird thing in their background, some time when they look the other way, once again, because we're human. We're not going to get a perfect person. Not everybody's going to be as conservative as you like. No politician is ever going to have the same thoughts on each issue that you do. You just have to, I guess, draw a line somewhere. But it certainly tells me something when the biggest scoundrel of all of them is the one who wins. You can say you went about, and I've told you, I wouldn't have voted for Jeb Bush. And there were others that I wouldn't have voted for because I don't believe they're conservative enough. But I don't believe that Jeb Bush is a scoundrel. I don't believe that Carly Fiorina is a scoundrel. You know who sounds even more like a scoundrel to me than I thought? Ben Carson. He sounds like a little bit of a scoundrel. Little bit. Maybe that's why he and Donald Trump have gotten along so well. Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie. I guess maybe he's a little bit of a scoundrel too and being embraced by Donald Trump. But overall, those people, these others, had nothing in their background compared to Donald Trump, and he's the one that won. Now, at some point, you have to start thinking, you know what? Maybe that's why I've continued to tell you that it's not necessarily the politicians who are the problem in this country. The problem is us. Politicians only make up what percent of the population in the United States? Not even 1%. You got 50 governors. You got all those legislators in the states. You have a president. You have 100 in the Senate. You have 435 in the House. Or maybe 438 if you count Puerto Rico or whatever, non-voting members that can't, not in the electoral college. I'm not getting into that. 534, 538, 435, whatever it is. That amount of people cannot ruin a country of 320 million people. At some point, maybe it's that 319.99 people that's ruining it. Maybe. That we as regular people out there aren't willing to embrace that and aren't willing to say that we are the problem because we accept liars and cheaters and scoundrels into our own lives and we get comfortable with it to the point where we can't even see it when it's right in front of our face, or we ignore it just because it fits our desires. Then you get the state of the country that we're in. You get an $18 trillion debt. So you get. And guess what? We deserve it. Now, getting back to my fellow conservative hosts out there, and what my co-host Melissa said to me, that she's listened to some of these shows and can't understand how they're all popular, and then extrapolating that to all this now conservative outrage out there on a lot of these same shows, I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to want to hear. I've told you about my other show, America's Missing Podcast, and by every standard, after only 4 episodes, I've just been blown away by the people that have taken an interest in the show, the amount of downloads, the amount of views of our YouTube channel. Melissa does the marketing for the show. I think she does a great job. And she's become frustrated. She looks at the iTunes rankings. She looks at the Podomatic ratings, and she can understand how these shows end up getting all these ratings and high up in the rankings. And then you listen to those shows, and they somewhat stink. And I had to tell her, Melissa, I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this show on Red State Talk Radio for over 2 years. I've been doing podcasting by myself for 8 years, maybe something like that. And the truth is, a lot of these people are faking it. A lot of those people that you see up at the top of those iTunes ratings and Podomatic ratings and everything, they have bought those 5-star ratings. They have bought those downloads. They have bought those views on YouTube, on and on and on. And guess who a lot of those people are? The same ones that you're going to listen to today that are going to criticize Hillary Clinton for getting away with all her crimes. You are listening to a bunch of cheaters. That's the truth. She asked me, Ed, why is your show more popular? Because I said I'm not willing to pay people to give me great ratings to boost my image. That's why. First of all, I can't afford it. That's the truth. So when you hear these people, and I know you listen to these other shows, and you think that they're popular because you see these 5-star ratings and all these different, and I know you get these shows from iTunes and Podomatic. You may not listen right when they're on Red State Talk Radio or whatever. They are not as popular as you think, and their ratings are fake for the most part. And meanwhile, they're going to tell you how the United States has to be a moral country, and everybody has to play by the rules, and Hillary Clinton should go to jail. Now I ask you, do you think those people really believe it? Or do they just love scoundrels too because they're being scoundrels? I just want to know. Scoundrels. All in an effort to be popular, all and probably in fits of desperation. You know, it's horrible. And I know there is that saying out there, fake it till you make it. So this is all something, I think it comes from a bunch of different places. I think that it started, in particular, at least in modern history, with the embracing of reality TV. That suddenly everybody thought that, hey, I can be a star too. All I have to do is be outrageous as possible and foul as possible and belligerent as possible and arrogant as possible. Then I can have a show too. And all I have to do is fake it here and fake it there. And then I can be a star and everybody's going to think I'm the greatest thing in the world. Does that sound like any particular candidate that you might know? And I think I stated maybe a couple months ago that Donald Trump is the culmination of our embracing of everything that is wrong in our culture. And it's like, I think at the time, I gave the example of a rug. And you got that, you want a nice little flat rug on your floor, but there's like that little bump. And you can't go on that bump just to, step on it goes away. No, you have to like push it off to the side of the rug, kind of let everything like a centipede or something or a snake just get it so it flattens out to the edge of the carpet. We've all done that to try to, you just can't step on it. Doesn't the little hump doesn't go away that way. Well, this is the hump. We're pushing this hump into the 2000s, keep pushing it, keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it lets all its air out at the side of the carpet, and finally it's nowhere to go, and suddenly that hump in that culture explodes, and it becomes President of the United States. Kind of love that analogy. I don't know if I explained it that well, but for some reason when I started thinking about this months ago, I guess somebody else might think of it as like a boulder rolling downhill, that it starts out really slow and it gains momentum, and suddenly a little rock that you could have stopped at the top of the mountain. By the time it gets 100, 200 feet down there, it's going at 50, 60 miles an hour, and if you get in front of it, you're dead. I guess that would be a pretty good example of what's going on as well. It doesn't become a big deal until it becomes a big deal. You think that you have it all under control until you realize that you probably weren't in control at all. But that's what's going on. That's what's going on in cheating for conservative hosts that you hear out there. That's what's going on in our culture. That's what's going on with people who don't do any shows, but they love cheaters just so they can say their team won. For a couple million minutes of a thrill before they have to go back to their real lives. And here's the truth. When you have stuff like that, it gets harder and harder and harder for people to play by the rules because they don't see much benefit in it. Instead, they think that they have to start embracing scoundrels as well if they want to get anywhere. And in fact, this is a perfect example of what goes on in socialism. The reason that socialism is so popular with so many people is not because people embrace equality. Every single person in this world, even the most ardent socialist, realizes that to have some sort of economy, that a doctor should make more than a ditch digger. Everybody knows that. That they deny it is part of the issue. But there's another part of it as well. And it's this. The reason a lot of people embrace socialism is because they hope that at some point they can get something, not because of the quality of their character, not because of the quality of their work, not because of what they can offer other people in exchange, goods for money, services for money. Instead, they think that it's a lot easier. All I need to know is to get to know somebody. I don't need to do anything. I just need to know the right person in the right place at the right time. But I don't have to have any skills. And that's what goes on in all sorts of socialist countries all over the world. Even going back to the Soviet Union. You knew somebody in the party, you're set. Oh, no, you don't have to work. No, we'll just give you this desk job over here. Oh, no, that's fine. Corruption. And that's why I continue to tell you that you want to see real corruption, go to China. Go to Iran. Go to India. Go to Russia. Go to all these countries that somewhat embrace socialism one way or the other, and you're going to see a lot of it. And even though we have it here, socialism is more corrupt, and it's because it's based more on relationships and knowing somebody in power than actually doing something with your life. And that's what I think is going on here. People want to identify with that athlete, with that politician. They want to get to know that person. Hey, maybe I get to know that athlete, and he can invite me to that party, even though he's a cheater and he beats his wife. I could say that I met him. I like rooting for him. They went undefeated last year. I love them. Same way with Donald Trump. People want to identify with him, and they love scoundrels. They don't care about Trump University. They don't care about all these things that have failed. They don't care that he traded his wife for newer models twice. He's one of them. They don't have to offer anything of any value. No, Donald Trump's going to fix it all. He's going to build a wall and everything's suddenly going to be great. It's so ugly. It's so perverted. And we're going to pay for it. We are going to pay for it in spades, and it's going to be doubled and tripled compared to the original effect. Kind of like the butterfly effect. The butterfly flops its wings, and somewhere else it creates a hurricane. It's something like that. But I got to go to the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
The voice of American conservatism. WRS Digital, Red State Talk Radio.
And we are back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to move to something else, although that it's clearly related. There was an article that you'll remember a couple weeks ago. I talked about an article from Matt Schneider that I thought was horrible, and he was talking about Bill Kristol and George Will and talking about free market and how the free market spoke and Donald Trump won, and remember that? Well, he has another article, and I was going to get to it yesterday, but I ran out of time, and I'm glad I didn't because then I can use it for what I was talking about the first half of the show. Matt Schneider talks about the silent majority, and the reason that Donald Trump is polling so poorly against Hillary Clinton because there's a lot of people out there who secretly are going to vote for Donald Trump, but they don't want to tell anybody. Okay. It's possible, and if you don't know, I believe that the silent majority statement started, back in the Richard Nixon days, I think? Something like that. It goes a ways back, maybe to the beginning of my lifetime, something like that. And it's the belief that people sometimes keep their political ideas and who they're going to vote for to themselves. They don't want anybody to know because they're afraid of being made fun of, but they still believe that they're right, and they just don't want to get into arguments with other people about politics. A lot of thought goes into a statement like silent majority. Well, that's what Matt Schneider, or maybe it's Schneider, I don't know. Matt Schneider, if I'm mispronouncing his last name, I don't mean to. And I was going to talk about that yesterday, but I think I can perfectly use it today in that I'm not so sure that there is a silent majority out there. But if there is, I don't know that you can make the argument, well, it's a silent majority because they just don't want to be made fun of. I'll tell you what. I have a Twitter feed that I follow quite a few people. I have quite a few people on my Facebook feed who are friends of mine, and as I've told you, you can find me on Facebook, but I do not talk politics there. But I have quite a few of my friends who put up more than enough Donald Trump memes and news that is very pro Donald Trump. In fact, some of those people are other hosts at Red State Talk Radio. But a lot of them are also friends of mine. So I don't know this silent majority that Matt Schneider is talking about. It seems to me that the Trump supporters are the most vocal ones in the world. I think. And in fact, you could say the opposite. If you wanted to talk about a silent majority, since Hillary Clinton keeps winning, she's the one that keeps polling higher in the polls, but once again, maybe it could be tough to find a lot of her supporters. Maybe because of this email scandal, they don't have the courage to come out and defend her on any of that, but it may be that they're going to vote for her anyway. Heck, the Daily Cause, I told you I was there earlier in the show. I told you that I went over there. They don't even mount a very zealous defense of her and what she did with her emails. All they can talk about is the Republican response. But they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, even though I think in the nomination process that they've been more Bernie Sanders people. But they're going to vote for her. All the people right there and the people go there and comment. They're going to do that, as I told you they would. But it also could be the silent majority that Matt Schneider says exists, whether on the left or the right, is that maybe it's not, maybe people, and I'm talking about scoundrels and how people embrace them, maybe that silent majority is silent because they know they embrace scoundrels and they don't want to admit it. Maybe there are a few people out there that do have some sort of conscience, but for some reason they can't resist their human urges to embrace people who cheat for them. People who cheat to then benefit the common person. I have to tell you, the reason I'm a conservative is because I believe you don't have to cheat to win. I don't think that markets need to be manipulated and laws need to be manipulated or anything like that. I believe that things can play out and everything that will be just fine. Getting back to what I was saying about socialism, I wanted to continue on that as well. And this has been a comment that's been made over the last 24 hours regarding Hillary Clinton. Are we now a nation of laws or a nation of men? The country's supposed to be a nation of laws, whereas most of the places in the world are nations of men, meaning that some people get in trouble and when they break the law and some other people don't. And a comparison has been made to Hillary Clinton. Had somebody else done this, that person would have been in trouble. Hillary Clinton, it looks like she is going to skate. I'm going to tell you the reason that nations of men are more prevalent than nations of laws. You know why? Because everybody in their life is hoping to get an out too. They're hoping that some law that they break will be excused because of who they are, even if they're a nobody. They're hoping that someday when they are driving home drunk, that the cop who pulls them over just happens to be their best friend from high school and the guy lets them go. That's why there are nations of men and not nations of laws. And this goes back to what I was saying in the first part about socialism. It's not about what the law says, it's just about who you know. And a lot of people love that because that's a lot easier to make happen. It's tough to follow the rules all the time, isn't it? Isn't it? And it's tough to think that because we know that we're all flawed people, that sooner or later we may break one of those laws. And guess what we're going to want? We're going to want to evade the law. We're going to want to get off. We're going to hope that the prosecutor makes a mistake. We're going to hope that somebody notices us and said, oh, no, this person's a good person. This is just a one-time mistake, and you get off, right? I think vanity, you call that vanity, one of the 7 deadly sins. Is that the one that it would be? That's why nations become nations of men and not nations of laws. Because everybody's hoping that they're going to need that out just that one time in life when the law won't apply to them. And when too many people, it doesn't start necessarily with one. The downward trend does not start with one person or 100 people. But you get to enough people, and I don't know what that number is, but it doesn't even need to be a majority of people. This is the argument I always make about drugs and legalizing them. The point is not that whether drugs should be legalized or not. The point is, what are all the people who choose not to going to do drugs? What are they going to do? Can a civilization exist when a large group of people are high on all the time? And as I've said, it doesn't need to even be a majority of people. It probably only needs to be 25% of the people that can't handle their own business that can bring down an entire civilization. And it's the same way with this. When too many people start thinking that this is a nation of men and not a nation of laws, then the law system doesn't mean anything. The truth is, as much as we make fun of elitists, everybody wants to be elitist. Everybody wants to be above the law. Just like everybody wants to win Mega Millions, even though they probably don't need the money. It's all the same. I still say you got to play Mega Millions just for the fun of it. But there will be people who won't win Mega Millions. They'll be jealous of who does. And even these people won't have an expense in the world. But they'll look at that person and win, and they'll come up with that won and come up with 100 reasons that person shouldn't have won. We are flawed people, and we continue to embrace our flaws, and we continue to exacerbate them. And that's how you get Donald Trump. That's how you get Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton running for president of the United States. It always, like it or not, people, as much as I make fun of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it all comes back to us. Are we willing to change? Not our politicians. Are we willing to change? Are we willing to be better people? Are we willing not to take shortcuts? Are we willing not to cheer athletes who cheat? Are we willing to just stay away from a season of baseball just once, just to make sure that our ideas and our conscience and our morals are in the right place? When you can't even do that, then you deserve the country that you get. I don't know what else to tell you. Once again, I'm here to challenge you. I'm here to let you in on some news that maybe you haven't heard, but I also see my role as a way to challenge all of you. And I'm not perfect either, but I try to challenge myself. You know, it sucks. It does. It does. But at some point, we have to prove to ourselves that we still know what is good and is moral. But we know you are out there. You're manipulating things so your kid can start on the team even though he or she isn't good enough. All because you don't want to hear that kid whine and cry and everything else. It starts with stuff like that. There has to be a standard, people. There has to be a standard. I don't know if you can let your values be compromised. Because it's going to... you're going to pay for it sooner or later. You're going to. In the form of your country not being something that you thought it was. It's no different than the fat person who thinks he or she can get skinny by eating chocolate. Can't happen. Can't happen. But we've convinced ourselves otherwise. The United States needs to go on a diet, and what do? We elect the chocolate makers, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And that's a direct reflection on us. I want to continue on. Once again, the embracing of scoundrels and embracing of a scoundrel who embraces scoundrels. And this is what's so funny to me. Over at the Daily Cause, they're making fun of Donald Trump and how he made this, I guess at least a small flattering statement. It's at least that of Saddam Hussein and how he took care of terrorists. And there they are at Daily Cause. Can you believe that Donald Trump is saying this about Saddam Hussein? That just shows you what kind of president Donald Trump would be, and it scares the heck out of us. Were these not the same people that wish that Saddam Hussein was still in power? Is that not right? So here Donald Trump says that he's kind of saying that he wishes that Saddam Hussein was still there. Most liberals in this country wish that Saddam Hussein was still there because they didn't want us to go into Iraq, but then they make fun of Donald Trump when he says that Saddam Hussein should still be in power. Go try to figure that one out. Liberals, they're a never-ending source of humor for us. But regarding that statement about Donald Trump and Saddam Hussein, I think this is just another example. As you know, I am not one of those conservatives who have backtracked on Iraq. I'm never going to backtrack on it, so you can forget that. That's a non-starter with me, unlike many conservatives who since then have changed their minds. But Donald Trump did say this about Saddam Hussein, that at least Saddam Hussein fought terrorism, which isn't even true. He fought certain terrorists. He embraced certain terrorists, didn't like others. He financed terrorism, just like Iran continues to do today and other countries continue to do to this day. But as the saying goes in the pickup community is that niche of guys who are trying to go up and meet women, and there's a saying within that's called game knows game, which means when two guys meet each other and one can tell if the other is good with women and can pick up women very quickly. Other guys who don't know anything won't know what he was doing, but a guy who does know will be able to identify the other guy in the crowd that's doing the same thing. Game knows game. Same way with dictators. With Donald Trump making flattering statements about Saddam Hussein, making flattering statements about Vladimir Putin. Game knows game. Birds of a feather flock together. Wonder who said that. Well, I have to look that up. Where did that saying come from? Is it from Shakespeare? I don't know. I have to look that up. But when you hear Donald Trump talk flatteringly about these guys, it's because he respects the way they govern, the way they rule, the way they dominate. And this doesn't seem to bother Trump supporters at all. Once again, that embracing of scoundrels. Embracing of bad people just because you think those bad people are going to do what you want. As if your desires are pristine. I would say you cannot have pristine desires coming from you can't have pristine desires if you want a scoundrel to be president. This is also a problem in our culture of winning at any cost, going back to my sports example from the beginning of the show. The reason that those fans cheer those teams is because they want those teams to win at any cost. They wouldn't mind if the referees cheat or were paid off or they made mistakes or the umpire caused the strike zone to be really small for the opposing pitcher and really big for their pitcher. Right, calling guys safe that are out, calling guys out who are safe, all in an effort to win, and most people would go along with it and not be bothered by it at all. They'd walk away from the game laughing and think, man, we really pulled something over on the other team tonight, didn't we? And this is what Trump people have embraced. They're winning at any cost. Have to stop Hillary Clinton. Doesn't matter who Donald Trump is. Have to stop Hillary Clinton. Winning at any cost is also a symbol of how our culture has degraded. And it has put our country in the position that it is. Because the United States has never been about winning at any cost. Never been about that. It's always been about certain ideas. And if other countries want to infringe on us, whether it has to do with our Revolutionary War, or World War I, or World War II with Japan attacking us, and Japan was going to continue to oppose us into the foreseeable future. We dropped a couple bombs on them just to make a point. That wasn't winning at any cost. The fact is that we won at their cost. We found a moral way to end that war with less casualties instead of more casualties. But when you cheat, and it's all just about winning, it's just about winning an election, it's all just about winning a game, it's all just about, being that I talked about the lottery tonight, we want to win the lottery so bad, and if you don't know, there have been a lot of stories in the news about people even finding ways to cheat at the lottery. I think that happened in Kansas. You hear about stories about people going to Las Vegas and using fake chips. I think some general or admiral did that. Maybe it wasn't in Vegas, but it's some casino somewhere, just in an effort to win. That's small-time stuff. That's essentially what we're doing now. Any effort to win, got to vote Donald Trump. That's why I'm not a part of the Republican Party anymore. That's why I don't have anything to do with it. I do not believe in winning at any cost. I believe in freedom and liberty and doing your best to not be fazed by what goes on out there and all of these different ways that people are going to try to pull you in trying to change your mind, how you have to compromise here, compromise there to get what you want. Once again, this is a show that wants to challenge you. This isn't your standard conservative show where we call everybody patriots and you're a good American and God bless the United States and everything else. Well, you know what? God, if you believe in him, he's going to have the final judgment. And I'm not so sure, I'm no expert Christian or anything like that, but is he continuing to bless us? Do you feel blessed that your choices are going to be Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? Do you feel blessed that the unemployment rate isn't what it is? Do you feel blessed that terrorists, we can't even go after terrorists in the United States, on and on and on? At some point, you have to start thinking that maybe God's taken a step back because of all these choices that we've made and how we've compromised our morals and our values. You have to realize God can only bless us if we ourselves behave and make good choices. All right? I'm not so sure that God's love goes that far. I'm not so sure. So let's not get too crazy on how great we are. We're not as great as we used to be. We embrace things we shouldn't. We want to win at any cost. We love scoundrels. And it culminates in what we have today with Hillary Clinton not being charged with email problems. And a lot of people embrace it. And if it was Donald Trump, the opposite side would embrace it as well. But I got to go. You can go to edwarddentzel.com. You can find my shows at Podbean, Podomatic, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Facebook, LinkedIn, email me, edwarddentzel@reagan.com, Twitter, Dentzel Domain. Talked about my other show tonight, America's Missing Podcast, with my co-host Melissa Bridges. You can find that at iTunes and Podomatic. My books are on Amazon again. Just do a search for my name. It's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.